This is Heroine Addiction, where we cover romance and drama manhwa, and where we know that gacha is just another form of gambling addiction. I'm Isekai Sensei Sama, aka Brad, and as always, I'm joined by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
My defense stat does not increase if I shed clothing.
And today, we're joined by a special guest and friend of the show, Moon.
Hi! Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for joining us. We got a special one today. But before we get into that, be sure to find us on social media, which you can find all the links for on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. So today, we are doing what I've dubbed the Recommender Special. Our last episode was indulgent for Ben, and so this time we decided to pick from all kinds of recommendations that we've been given, and the one that won was recommended to us by Moon. And as a former guest, I figured it would only be fitting to have her back on. So today we're covering Chitra. This has been, as far as I can tell, this has been ongoing for quite a while.
Yeah,
I'm seeing
a couple of years
here. I will note before we get into this, there is not an official English release of this.
Tragic, a shame.
I was really surprised because it's well rated. Mm-hmm. I would have figured someone would have picked it up, but no, there's only scanlations.
These publishing companies don't know what they're missing out on.
I do have to ask. I'm glad we have the recommender here, because is it recommended because you honestly thought we'd like it, or is it recommended because you thought it would be funny to watch us react to it?
Actually, more the first. Okay. Your reaction didn't come to mind. It said, hey, this is really interesting series. It's a reverse harem where all of the guys get a little bit of lovin'. And, there's like some good world building in there as well. Like an interesting take on the ultimate isekai.
We'll definitely get into this a bit. I will say ahead of time, I understand why you gave us this recommendation. But I got some stuff to say on that. Before that, there is a short, I guess, summary that's on here. So I will read that real quick, and then we will dive directly into the deep end. I spent years preparing for the civil service exam, but I can't believe I died so unfairly. Is that so? I was reborn as a beautiful countess. I even got the ability to play games from the god of beauty. Drawing? Yes, I have the ability to draw for characters. I have become the apostle of the god of beauty and benefited the world widely by drawing out ultra-rare characters. So yeah, I really don't like gacha stuff at all.
Oh, I'm in the gacha hole, so this is great.
I wasn't, okay? Like, I didn't play Genshin Impact or any of those. I'll tell you what got me. Recently, I started playing a tower defense game called Underdark, filled with gacha mechanics. Ugh. And I, like, as she's, trying to, like, roll or draw for the super ultra rare, I was like, oh, I feel this. And like, mm-hmm. Oh, I've got to do like 3 draws and then I'm guaranteed a 3-star or higher. I was like,
okay, listen, I don't have a ton of notes about this series, but one of the few notes I have is gachas don't work like that. You can't influence what you draw.
That is a misconception, Ben. I mean, bad misconception.
You got to empty your mind. Actually, she has a good technique. You got to empty your mind.
I've used it before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
This is bad for people. People are going to read this. They're going to be like, "Oh yeah. Oh, if I press the button slightly harder, I'll definitely get it better. Oh, I have to not have any greed in my heart, and then I'll definitely roll better." That's greed. You're being greedy by saying that.
No,
it doesn't work like that.
All I wrote on my Christmas list was world peace, and because I wrote the good things, now Santa's going to give me the presents as a reward.
Now, to be fair, in this world of magic and gods, it sort of maybe does work like that, but also doesn't. There doesn't seem to be an actual consistency to anything. But like some of the gods are giving her things within the gotchas. I don't know. I'm so we'll just clear this out at the beginning here. I got through the first season. I figured that was only fair. I don't care for this. I don't think it's bad. I should say that, but it's definitely got enough things that aren't for me. I might continue reading this just like on and off here and there, but like I have no desire to continue to binge this. A lot of the world stuff I enjoyed, but so much of it revolved around the game mechanics of what she was doing and the gotcha draws, and like especially near the end of season 1 where she like gets this like administrative thing, and so it's just devolved into just all these like game window panels and pressing buttons and stuff like that, and I'm just like, I'm not against the video game mechanics in a Magic World thing, although like it's funny to say this, as many isekai as I read that have RPG mechanics and stuff in them, I don't like it when it's like the main focus. When it's just an extra thing to help explain things that are going on, I'm fine with. But like when it's like, oh, I'm actually playing this game, and I'm just like, this. Well, why are you in a different world then? You just play a game.
I kind of feel bad because in the later half of the series, they kind of drop a bit the gotcha mechanics. So it's just like it's less prominent than in the first season. I think in the first season it's more of like we're establishing characters. These how you attain the characters. It's just this wacky, funny gotcha mechanic kind of thing.
It was like the first 25 chapters or something like that, and there wasn't a ton of it. Like she was doing some rolling and there was a bit of like the quest window stuff, but like it wasn't super heavy in it. And then as it got later in the first season, it just went whole hog on that. So I mean, if you're saying that it drops that off quite a bit later on, like I'm hopeful for that. Like I said, I would potentially read more of this. I just don't really. I don't have a whole lot of motivation right now.
So even like a few months ago, I'd have been right there with you on the gotcha mechanics. But now that I've started playing this dumb tower defense game, I'm like, I felt it. I actually found that very relatable, because the thing with the gotcha mechanics is like, you could tell she knows, like everybody who plays gotcha stuff knows deep down, this is a guilty pleasure. Like, like we know this isn't like all some. We're not building our like chess skills here.
It's our shame.
Are you sure it's everybody?
Well,
everybody.
I don't spend a ton of money on it, I will say that.
Me neither. I am no whale, but we're reasonable. The whales are the ones that are just boasting their pride about like, look how much money I spent on this. I spent like $100,000 on this gotcha game.
So I'll tell you, this game I got, the only thing I bought was, and I do this with every mobile game I buy, disabled the ads. And the way this works with this game is you can pay money or you can watch ads to like get certain stuff. When you disable the ads, you just get to push on the ad button and you get whatever the reward would be. And when you get like...
That sounds dangerous.
When you get 10 tickets and you get to turn them in for like 10 items and you're watching them like come up like one by common, fuck, that's trash, rare, that's trash, unique, I'm done with those two. And then you get like something with a purple border. Oh man.
Like, that might be good.
You can feel the dopamine flood your brain. and I'm sitting there like, yeah, that's not healthy, but I'm going to do it again. So, no, I'll tell you though, the struggle for me, like, I think I'm probably fulfilling my podcast role of being in the middle of two opinions of, I don't like harems, and I haven't done a lot with reverse harems. I think the only one other than this I've really gotten into was, Oran High School Host Club.
Somebody in the comments posted that on one of the chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, and that was because my wife was into it. But what do you do when you're a reverse harem person or a harem person, I guess, and you have like a favorite ship? Like,
then that doesn't become a reverse harem. That just becomes like you're rooting for this one ship.
I think that's
you
me.
Can also you
that's
you
me
can
in the
want
butler.
that, and you can want that particular pairing to have the most time together.
Exactly.
It's me and the butler, because that was like I was getting frustrated when like,
that's my main ship.
Especially the little blonde guy,
Torian.
Yeah, I don't like him. I'm okay.
But he's the one you're supposed to be like, oh, look, he's going to change because she's changing him because of how smart and interesting and cool she is.
She is not. She is not.
I don't like him.
His conniving ways is too beneficial for her administration to even attempt to change.
He's a bureaucrat, Brad. You can't change him. But
exactly.
No, I can tolerate, like, look, you know, if we must have, like, I also like the red-haired guy. Tyrex, I think.
Yeah, Tyrex. He's also, he's part of the trifecta of main guys.
He can be there. But it's the
He's totally fine with that.
Yeah, and I liked that about him. He's a simple man. It's weird that he's the mage. He does not like exude mage to me. But no, he could be. It's her and the butler, and Tyrex can watch and jump in occasionally.
Sounds like he wants to jump in a lot.
100%. He's pushing it for that.
It's
so
tough because
bad.
physically attractive wise, Tyrex is the most attractive. Mm-hmm. To me, I guess.
So I'm going to tell you the other part of this that I was not on board for, and again, not against, just not for me, was, I guess, the whole theme of this series, which is like all
Collecting
the beauty
beautiful men?
stuff. What?
Collecting beautiful men.
I mean, to an extent, I'm certainly not against
that your
beauty.
outer beauty is a reflection of your inner beauty.
Yeah, just I mean, it's almost the moral of the series, at least so far.
I don't like. I thought that at first, but then as it went on, and I made it about a season and a half into it. I ran up against some time constraints, but you could tell me if this gets better, because it was starting to get to a point where the god of beauty was like actually getting involved in adjusting people's outward appearances. Yeah. So like the more wholesome you were, the more beautiful you became. And if you were born beautiful, but you weren't wholesome, they'd punch you in the face and break your teeth.
Yeah, to make you ugly. Yeah, to reflect that. No, you're right.
I almost worry about that. Like, being Korean, I know that there's some issues in Korean culture with like emphasis on beauty and things. And like the very fact that at the very beginning, she's reincarnated into this woman, right? She goes from being a dark-skinned person to this incredibly light-skinned person. I was like, oh my God, are you starting this way? Okay.
That has always been an issue. I will admit that. Even with manga as well, where the character had a darker complexion and they would suddenly become lighter, and that would be symbolized as beautiful. But I just consider that like that's the beauty standard, and it's nothing against, even though it is very problematic and it is an issue.
I would have let that all slide a lot more if then they didn't bring up the caste system.
I think I was telling you about this, Brad. I just, where I live, I happen to know a ton of Indian people, and she ranks the attractiveness of men on the scale of the Hindu caste system at one point, and I was like, ooh, that's not great. And I sent it. I sent just the pyramid she uses. It's like, I think it says Brahmins, handsome with a kind personality. Kshatriyas, decent personality. Vaishyas, handsome with a bad personality. And Shudras, ugly with a bad personality. And I sent this to my future brother-in-law. And I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how offensive is this? And he goes, I find it hilarious, but publicly I would have to say it's very offensive. Now, it's worth mentioning he's a Brahmin. So I sent it to a friend of mine who is in a lower caste, and she said, I bet Brahmins would love it. So that was, you could tell like that's a Korean looking at a different culture, making a joke knowing there's not a lot of Indian people reading it.
Yeah.
So then there's one more step on this on this downward spiral that we're going on, which is and I don't remember if this was the exact characterization that they did, but the original Chitra was at the very least characterized as autistic.
Yeah, I don't. Do we blame the translator for that?
Maybe.
Yeah,
but it doesn't change the fact that like that was her characterization of like she couldn't talk to people.
Well, there's literally a line in the first chapter, I think, where they say because of her autism, she couldn't blah blah blah, and I didn't know. I don't know if I want to blame the comic for that because I'd have to see.
Right.
There were just a couple of things where it seemed a little insensitive, but on the other hand, like that's webcomics kind of.
I want to be clear. I don't think, for someone who likes this, I don't think those are like things that you would be like, oh, this, if you like this, you're a bad person or anything. But it's definitely things to keep in mind and be like, this is at best skirting the line of like what is offensive or not.
I don't remember reading that. I remember like she couldn't speak or anything because like her parents were killed and they were in an accident that she witnessed, and it was like very traumatic for her. So she kind of just like shut down, and then people just took advantage of her, and her family just kind of like let her decay away. But I don't remember reading that, but
and that's why I kind of wondered what the original language said, because that is the way you described it is exactly the vibe on the page. And I just wondered if the choice of words, because the choice of words I read was up to a translator, and those are not the words I would have chosen. Mm-hmm. But I
know in later down the line there's a character, and the translator do use the word autism and some other condition as well. I don't exactly remember, but I don't. But for Chitara, I don't remember like seeing that part.
Yeah,
So,
where I say like it's webcomics, I mean, I don't mean to say it's like you shouldn't think about it, but I have an expectation that the people drawing and writing these probably young, working quickly for a young audience, that like they're not researching medical conditions to try to figure out like what would she have, and they're just like, oh, I know people with autism sometimes have communication problems, and they don't think about the broader implications. But I thought that was okay. They moved past it pretty quick.
I just I mean, having an autistic character in there and having that representation and exploring
it's not representation,
right? In this specific case, she's literally just replacing her, and it's like, oh, here's this woman. She was, downtrodden. She couldn't speak, and she died. And we're going to replace her with this other woman who's charismatic and smart, and she's going to get all this. And it's just like,
well, and it also
that's horribly depressing.
We're wandering into my douchey philosophical corner here, but like that really also puts the burden of mental illness on the soul, not the brain, because she's still got Chitra's brain. But
although that's where I would say, are we saying autism is a mental illness, or
that's true? Yeah,
is it just a different way a brain is constructed?
No, I think that's neurodivergency is the word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's get into the she's got to draw, she's got to get a lucky draw off the bat. Is the main character. I feel the male lead, I should say.
Yeah,
she's the main character.
The main guy, Radlick. I could just call him Radlick. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm pronouncing it.
I think that's fine. I was Radlick, Redlick. I don't know.
I used
like
Google
Red
Translate. Yeah, the actual Google translation.
Red elk.
Rad elk. Yeah, but I'm just like, sounds different. I'm picturing something very different.
So many times these names are just like, I bet that sounds cool when you say it with your native accent, but in English, this is not working.
In Korean, it sounds very cool.
Yeah, I liked him. He's cool, and I like the way that they play off of each other. Him and Chitra, the back and forth that they have, and the sort of the build up to the romance that they're gonna have, the way those scenarios sort of fell into place, where he's all like, oh, she ate my orb, whatever the heck that's all about. So we're just like a family. So I can't let these feelings loose that I have. And she's all like, oh, he's so he's so well put together and capable and everything. He wouldn't like me like that. I'm just gonna keep looking at him.
I mean, that's fair.
There was a storytelling thing I liked that I haven't seen done elsewhere, and this could be like my lack of exposure. I liked how the people she's drawing are like real people who had real lives, and like upon their death, the god of beauty gave them the choice to be incorporated into this weird gotcha system. And they like remember each other. Like there's this whole like, she draws the butler, she draws the mage. The butler and the mage have a past.
Yeah, they're half brothers.
Yeah, and so like I like that, because they always give those like flavor text things especially in the comics that do this, and even in the games that do this. They have like, oh, this is a hero from a bygone age, blah 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 blah, and like you're never going to go to that age, you're never going to see anything about that. But with this, there is actually like world building tied into the gotcha game.
This almost strikes me as someone was like, I want to make a gotcha game, but I can't program, but I can draw or write.
Write and draw.
who this was. It's written by Tae Sun and drawn by Refe. Apparently.
Well, I know, but I'm going to expand on what Ben said. The characters that she does draw all have pretty fleshed out backstories from their time in the past. Radlick and T-Rex, they both fought their demon king, demon lord, or whatever, and then they both divulged into different paths. So, with Radlick, we get to see, we see a little bit of his past before he started going on this quest to kill the Demon King. And then with T-Rex, we see his past afterwards. And they're very different. And I will admit, T-Rex is a little sad. It's a little tragic, a little bit. But I like how each of the characters, they get their past fleshed out, and it's not just like a throwaway thing. It's actually a kind of a fundamental part of their personality, and it's and they're ingrained principles. So it's a very refreshing change compared to other reverse harems where it's just let's drag them in and being look at all these handsome guys around this one girl, pick who you want, pick your niche.
And there's that too.
I mean, that is true, but each one has an in-depth backstory, and be I relate more to this backstory, or like this one I'm not really a fan of, but I like how he's going from his past and he's looking forward and moving on towards his future kind of thing. So it's all very, I like how in depth they can be.
And I thought it was an interesting way to tell the story too, because with a lot of Otome Isekai, the protagonist has played the game, knows all the characters, and we get the exposition about their backstory through her inner monologue. And in this, these dudes all know things she doesn't know. And she has to kind of read it on their facial expressions. She's oh, there's some tension between these two. Why?
I was worried about that when they first introduced that whole I'm going to absorb their spirit ball thing, and then we're going to feel each other's emotions and stuff. I was oh, were they just going to all of a sudden know what each other are thinking and everything? But they didn't really do a ton with that.
I think that's just so that you, the reader, know you don't need to worry about them betraying her unless they do.
Highly doubtful any of them will betray her. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I think they wanted to let you know, no, this is what we're doing. This is the reverse harem. These guys work for her. They all love her. And as far as a harem can go, I do actually like the way they establish each character's attraction to her as oh, she's doing things a little different. She's not just respected, they expect her to use them. But
act like their previous lords or leaders and everything. And when she doesn't, and when she subverts those expectations, they're oh, you're different compared, even though you're in this position of power, you're treating me as a person. You respect me and my boundaries. You take merit in my capabilities. And that's kind of different than what they're used to.
I was a little confused, though, because at times they'll show that they have knowledge of her and the other world that she came from and everything. But then at other times it's oh, that's a crazy new novel idea that you have there. How did you ever come up with that? I'm just that she's from this other world.
Well, I think they know that she's from another world, but I don't think they know anything about Korea or what that other world is like.
It was just there were a couple points like that where the consistency of the the world building in that specific way. I was just like, are you keeping track of what's going on here?
Yeah,
But
it does look like there's a lot of world building that's going on, and I'm like, one of my concerns is like, how are they going to wrap that up into like the main plot, or if they're just going to forget it or retcon it or whatever. So there's a bit of trepidation there for me as a fan. Just being like,
But
are you going to remember this?
it was the character interactions and the world building, like the territory building and stuff like that. That was the stuff that I was like, oh, I'm on board for this stuff. Like, I can get behind this. This is the kind of stuff that I like in my isekais.
Yeah, I love the whole territory building aspect, even though it's also gamified as well. It's nice to like have kind of like an actual serious territory management kind of vibe compared to all the other isekais where it's just like, oh yeah, we're just wandering around, and then you'll be the leader of this little village here, and then you report back to me, and blah blah blah, and then they just go off and on their adventure or whatever as usual. But this is like actual like bureaucratic. There's paperwork to be done. There's budgets to be balanced. There's diplomacy to be had. So it's very nice. I like it.
But then on the flip side of that, there's good bits of comedy in there as well. I did enjoy they would have a subtle, expectation subversion they throw in, or the reactions to certain things that they would have that I generally had a couple chuckles.
In terms of like well-constructed jokes, this was probably like, I'd say at least like top 3 funniest for me. And I don't know, maybe it's just like for me, the novelty of the reverse harem, cause I don't read that many of them, but like one of them that I remember was like when she has to choose between polygamy and polyandry, and she's just sitting there and it's like, well, I mean, I guess there's only 2 choices. The monogamy is not an option. So I guess it's polyandry. It's polyandry. And then she's like, I had to, guys, it's just, there was only 2 options. And they're like, we don't care. It's, you're the queen. You can do whatever. Then the other thing that got me was, when she's like, okay, we got to start making men more beautiful. And she's like going through like all the thought justification for it. And she's like, and when you think about it in the animal kingdom, like males are often like putting on displays to attract females. They're often like the more ostentatious. How did we get this up backwards in humanity? We got to fix this. Like, it's not about me. It's about the natural order, guys. Like, we just got to do this. And then when she's like, okay, so we're going to make nice people beautiful with weird skincare treatments, and we're going to make mean people ugly, and like people who just aren't like very virtuous but not also terrible, you just stay how you are. And then eventually they're like, no, there's got to be one beautiful man per household. And so we're going to have to get this virtue up, guys. And like they start figuring out like what herbs make a bad boy type and what herbs make a pretty boy type.
I love that because it was so funny of being like, you can customize your guy.
And all the women in the village are like, oh, when my man finally learns how to not be an asshole, I want him to do the bad boy type. I'll go for a pretty boy type. And they're like, I was like, I'm reading this, as a guy who's watched anime for a while. It's like, yeah, I suppose we deserve this. Yeah, it's
there was a thing there that I thought they were going somewhere with this, because they introduced the whole one beautiful man per household thing, and then also the polyandry like alongside it. And I was like, oh, they'll just like every woman who doesn't have a beautiful husband can also then get married to a beautiful man.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see an evolution of that. They were just like, oh, we're just gonna go torture these men until they're better people, and then they can be beautiful.
it's an economy of scale thing. You know, you got to be able to afford two husbands. So.
Exactly. I mean, she was already overwhelmed after the one beautiful man per household thing. So it was just a reason to get those faith points up.
But no, I could pretty quickly see how this comic appeals, especially to women who probably have like quietly or not so quietly had these same frustrations. Like why are there so many ugly guys? And like there's all those little conversations off to the side where like the man's like, I shouldn't have to go to the castle. I mean, it shouldn't be all about appearances. And his daughter's like, you called mom fat yesterday. Go to the castle and get pretty. I'm like, yeah. It's the power fantasy. She's the one thing that always gets me a little, and it's not like a deal breaker for me. And this is in a lot of Otome Isekai, is like when they get in charge and they just start killing violent criminals. I'm always like, wow, that's so real. It's like
it's a fantasy we all want to achieve, to get rid of like the scum of the earth, right? But those people, we don't have like the power to do so, or the capabilities, because we'd all go to jail. That were to happen.
It's weird to have like all these like gender play gags that work very well. And one of the things, like spoiler for the rubric, I guess, I'm going to go pretty high on like artistic flourish. Cause like, I actually really like the chibi effects and like when she's got the big circle eyes and she's looking off to the side. And, I really like all the cartoon comedy they did. But so you've got all that going on. And then she's like, okay. And then for the murders and the rapists, we're going to like cut off and then they bleep it out, and then their hands and their feet. and we're going to let them like bleed out. And I'm like, holy shit. I guess.
Yeah, like in the background, there's definitely some heavier themes that are going on that I wouldn't expect from this like kind of slightly degenerate gag comedy, gotcha, territory management kind of manhwa that I'm reading.
You know, it strikes me that they are doing a sort of a washing of it by going, oh, this is a world where there's war and people die all the time. It's medieval and all, and like the morality of this time. And she's like, oh, but I don't want to go to war. I don't want innocent people to be hurt. And we're all like, oh, she's such a good person. But she also had tens to 100 people executed like the first thing she did.
Well, and I wonder, and maybe like Moon, you can talk about this. Do you think that appeals to like the feminine fantasy though? Of like, if in this world, like in a medieval world, like women are probably disproportionately victims of crime, especially violent crime. Mm-hmm. And you get to just be like, you know what? I'm going to do everything I always wanted to do to those people.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Especially on the sub, we love vindication, and we love when scumbags get their justice. You have no idea how many series that are on there that people are just ready to, like, there's a lynch mob ready to go into this fictional story about this fictional couple in this fake situation, and they're ready to witch hunt this guy down. So yeah, 100%. There's a real appeal for that power fantasy kind of thing. People getting their just desserts, taking advantage of the weak, kind of thing. So yeah, it is play or pandering towards the female demographic, and I don't know, I like that. I like being pandered to in that way, because in reality sometimes you have to just like, and I'm just talking about just everybody in general, like humanity wise, sometimes you gotta suck it up. You can't just go out and you gotta be an adult, and you gotta smile and be gracious, and being like, there are real life consequences. I can't just go around and do the thing. But oh boy, do I want to.
I mean, there's a whole genre of manga and manhwa that is literally just like revenge. So, I mean, I do understand it, but generally, those series, they go one of two ways. On the one hand, it's like they show that they're completely justified in literally everything they're doing, and they don't try and like play it off in any kind of way. Whereas, like I was saying with Chitra, they sort of then go on to be like, oh, I don't want to hurt anybody. And then the other way that it goes is they're just like unrepentant and just like, everybody's going to die because fuck everything.
Well, I was kind of talking to my wife about this, and it was also kind of why I wanted to talk to Moon about it. Cause like it always jars me when I see that in the Otome Isekai, like when they're like, you know, it's especially like the rapists and violent criminals. It's like, we're going to, you kill them in the most brutal way I can think of at the moment, and then on to the next thing. And I was talking to my wife about it, and for her, it was like, I was like, do you think that ever like would jar you? And she's like, nope. That is the first thing I would do, and then it would just be on to the next thing. It's like that's
it's very task oriented. Like this is what we need to do in order to better society that we're in right now, and then we're on to the next thing that will better society, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, my wife was like, I would not lose one wink of sleep over that. She was like, I am so tired of it. Yeah, that would just be the first thing I do, and then we can begin the story.
Yeah. It's a very popular take, an opinion to have, you know, just moving on to the next thing, because like, I guess in a lot of people's minds who favor that stance would be, or do that kind of thing would be more of like, this is like, these people, they're not people. They're like subhuman. What they do, their actions are just not a part of what humanity should be, or we don't want to associate with that. So they're kind of viewed as lesser or other, and then you kind of just get rid of that and set an example.
And it's like you said, you know, if it were real life, I don't know, maybe there'd be a little more nuance to it, but this is a escapist fantasy comic, and this is the escapist fantasy. It's just that simple. It's done. It's over.
Mm-hmm. But I like how we see like the little impact that when she does do the whole like execution of like violent criminals. You know, you see those two sisters there in the crowd, and they stop and they see what's going on, and they hold each other's hands, and like one of them is just crying, like silently weeping, as like finally justice is being served right now. Like whatever happened to them, they don't go into that. And we see those two sisters like that in like a little in the background a little bit. We get a little bit of chapters with them and see how their life has improved. So I like how we kind of see that silence of like, this is the reason why she's doing it.
Yeah. When I was going to ask about that too, because as the story goes on and they get more involved in the kingdom building and like righting the wrongs of the world, I got to just a little bit of the part where maybe some of the fighting, like, not like the fighting started like there was a big war, but like she was actually taking like tactical military action.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, does it keep the super silly tone for the next two seasons, or do they...
It gets a bit more serious. Like there's definitely larger stakes at play, especially with the kingdom that's going on. I don't know how far you've made it, Ben, but later on they're dealing with like the emperor gets assassinated, and then the new potential emperor, the heir, comes in, and she has to kind of deal a little bit with that. And then she's also dealing with this little group of, like, they're called the Six Dukes, and she has to deal with them as well. So it's definitely it's a lot of more politicking later on, which I like, surprisingly enough. I hate real world politics, but like when we're going into fantasy politics about TV shows and all that kind of stuff, that's my shit. So it definitely gets more serious. There's still that like little bit of lighthearted tone, but those are in like separate chapters. So like when they're going into like a political diplomacy kind of things, it kind of maintain that seriousness. And then the more lighthearted stuff is reserved for like later little like not side chapters, but just like little subplots. Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing I did sort of like about it was that the first season is kind of jokey joke and all about like we just need more beautiful men in this world. It's like a very simple fantasy, but towards the end of that season and then in the start of the next season, she benefits her subjects. Like even the men, like it is funny to have it flipped on me of like now men are being objectified.
Oh yeah.
but they're being objectified and collected and tweaked for the benefit of their wives. And I understand the irony and like, hey, that's not fair. But
when she evolves the poles and they take off their helmet so you can see their face better.
Yeah.
She's got the statues, and there's the cute type and the muscular type. And
I gotta say, the statues, my favorite part of the whole thing.
The statues are great.
Is hilarious. When the first one gets introduced, that was the funniest thing, I think, in this whole series. I was just like, that is hilarious. He's just running around going, everybody should worship the God of beauty. Like
doing scriptures, preaching scriptures, and like having like little gospels while he's running around doing his thing.
And just like shouting them at full volume.
Yeah. Every time they show up anywhere, it's the funniest thing. When they go, when they're like, oh, we need to bring the farmers in who ran away from the old, oppressed lords and everything. And you see these farmers are out in like the middle of the forest, but they're like tilling away. And then someone's like, there's intruders. And you see like this big hulking thing coming through the underbrush. And you're like, oh, what? They're going to fight. And then he's like, hey, God of Beauty is great. Here's some deer.
Yeah. They don't quite get it, but they're doing their best.
Yeah.
But no, the thing I liked, where I was going with that was like, even though it is like male objectification, it's still to like the men's benefit to do what she wants them to do. Cause like, it is funny. She goes around and there's all these, like the statues, they also are like, they'll throw like, beauty cream on some guy's face. And he's like, oh my God, I feel 10 years younger. he's like, look at me. And they're like, yes, cleanliness and hygiene cures disease, and they're in trying to implement that aspect of beauty. And I was like, I started reading this a while ago, but then I put it off, and I had to consume a bunch of chapters really quick. And I think I posted in the Discord, like it got in my head. Like I was like looking in the mirror, I'm like, should I have a skincare routine? Like.
If you want to put into that effort,
good. I don't do anything special, I think.
If you want to put in that effort, then you can. There's no judgment. All I know is I'm trying to look like I'm immortal, and it's working. I've been told I do not look my age multiple times. So, yeah, it's beneficial.
I guess to be fair, I've always tried to look older because, I mean, you can tell with the gigantic beard. If I shave this off, I probably look like I was 20.
I'm getting to the age where I don't want to look older anymore. I'm good. I'm good now. I was thinking about it because like wherever we go, my wife, she's non-binary. She looks like a 18-year-old boy.
She's a skater punk.
Yeah, she looks like a skater punk, and people always think she's like very like she works with this one guy who thought they were the same age, and he was 21 and she's 35. And I'm like, God damn, nobody's making that mistake with me. I think I gotta get on it. But I was thinking about it because I was like, the comic raises some good points. It's like, you know, like all the men, they're like, they feel better and they're like, oh my God, I feel better about myself. I feel more self-confident. I'm doing this for me. You know, as much as I'm doing it for them, I'm doing it for me. And I was like, yeah, I should. You know, I'm getting up there. You know, I should wear sunscreen. Like,
No, I mean, I love that what you've taken away from this is like self-care.
yeah,
It's important to care about yourself, to have that self-respect, you know? It's good.
My skincare routine is don't go outside.
well, there you go.
That also works too.
I'm just waiting for the day my beard is completely gray, so I can be, you know,
Hey,
dignified and old.
some women like that salt and pepper look, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's very attractive nowadays.
My wife.
Oh God. My like I was watching I don't this is so tangentially related, but like it's just weird being a guy reading the reverse harem because you it's a perspective you don't normally get if you only watch like the stuff that's like made for your demographic. But I remember watching this one video where they were talking about like the manosphere stuff, like guys trying to be tough and like edgy.
Oh yeah, that toxic place.
And they're like, and then why can't, and then these guys wonder why they have a hard time dating. And it's like, but like this whole time, like women are telling you what they want. Like go look at a magazine for women. And they showed a difference between like, I think it was Chris Evans on the cover of Men's Health. And he's like shirtless and ripped and like glaring at the camera. And then they showed him on the cover of like Good Housekeeping or something. And he was in like a turtleneck and like just looking at the camera or something. And they're like, yeah, they don't really like want you to be like this monster, you know? They want you to, and it's like,
I mean, you can be the monster, but you also have to have that balance of being like, you know, soft.
yeah, you got to have that
It'd be nice if you can turn it on.
Tyrion thing where you got the fiery red hair and the JoJo outfit.
So I don't read a ton of reverse harem. The one that really jumps to mind is I fell into a reverse harem game. Could you tell that's a reverse harem? And that one is sort of depressing and serious pretty much the whole time.
Yeah,
So,
I haven't read it, but
it's good. It does have a couple of R18 chapters if you're into that.
I definitely am.
And I mean, I like that, but
I don't know if I want a depressing and serious R18.
the R18 is the good kind.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the R18 chapters are just the sex scenes. But this is such a different take on the reverse harem from that. So it's like there's such a big difference that it's hard for me to even, you know, do any comparison to that. Because even to that extent, like all the men who surround the main character in that one are very timid of her. She's the princess. She's the crown princess. And she was evil before she possessed this body, like the original one. And so everybody's scared of her, and like it's a whole thing with that. So this is so different in that like most of these people, if not all of the ones that she's actively engaged with, didn't know the original owner of this body. They're all coming in from a fresh perspective. She's nice. She's, you know, got all this stuff going for her. So, and of course, like I said, the tone difference is just night and day. So
I was, did you guys get a kick out of the, like stat block erections she gets when she's
Yes,
willpower.
that mainly stays in the first season. But yeah, it was great. It's like you can see her degeneracy level rising in real time. I love that.
I was like legit shocked because I thought they were going to play around with this so much longer when in season 1 we get not one, not two, but 3 smooches from 3 different guys.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that, especially the butler. I was like, damn, he just went for it. I was like, shit, now they're going to, and she's into it. And then they do the like, oh, but maybe he doesn't like me thing. And I was like, damn it. No, butler, you gotta, first impressions matter. Okay. Before she starts getting with these other guys, you gotta tell her how you feel.
I was surprised about it, but it did. I think it made sense because they build up a lot ahead of time of like, oh, I have these feelings, but I can't do anything about it. And then talking about like, oh, I need to control myself and everything. And it just like got too much for him. He couldn't deal with it anymore.
And also T-Rex also kind of did the first smooch. So
that was just ridiculous. Like... he was just like, oh, I'm going to go for this.
Well, and T-Rex is like, this dude is like...
He's great. I love him.
Oh man, what's the term? I don't want to say bisexual. I want to say everything. Pansexual.
Oh yeah, that's what I was about to say.
That guy is, he's down for whatever.
Yeah, he is down for whatever.
He used to be.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true, yeah. That is true. He used to be down for whatever.
Because he's like about the cute boy in the tower. He's like, oh, why don't I go for him? Is it because he's a man? No, that's not it. Because I'm not interested in any women either. And I was like, wow, that is such an innocent way to explore your feelings. He's just, no, that's not why. And then he just kisses her. But I don't like that blonde kid. He's a sneaky
Victorian?
Yeah.
I love the dynamic that Florian and Radcliffe have together. Just 2 snipey, petty people playing mind games with each other of being like, I want to be with Chitra, so I'm going to try and get this person to leave. I'm not going to budge from this stance. I will die on this hill. You move. I'm not moving. So it's kind of like this dynamic of like these 2 people, equally smart, okay, equally devious, or the potential to be. And it's just like this push of 2 mighty forces. And it's just like over like the smallest little thing, and I just love that. I love the dynamic between like every single harem character. Even later on, they get more additions, 3 more additions, and there's even more like a little bit of dynamic even there too. So just like it.
So I wanted to ask because I had a feeling it was going towards more guys. How do things develop? Because I think I read about 60 chapters and there's like, what, 178?
79.
79. Okay.
Yeah.
Still coming out.
Yeah, still coming out.
So does she get more romantically involved with any of the guys? Or like, does she establish like the proper, like, I don't know, polyandry situation she's going for? Or does it just continue to be like little playful interactions?
I think later on with 2 new characters. One is more of like a political marriage kind of thing. So there is marriage, but this one's more political. This is a political pawn or play, so to speak, a political marriage. And then the other one is a marriage of necessity, or just like, I guess, bureaucracy. I'm not sure. They're both willing, and both consent. But but yeah, there's 2 characters that she does kind of end up marrying. It only in name, marriage in name. There's no ceremony or anything. But it does maintain that like a bit of lighthearted dance around, but they still get smooches, you know. Maybe there is some like intimate moments with the guys. So I wouldn't say it's it advances to where you would think it would go into in a reverse. Like when you think of like reverse harem, like you think about all these steamy moments and like they're going on dates and all that kind of thing. No, it does not get to that step, but I think it's because there's bigger fish to fry, which is the plot, which is more of like the politics and like also kind of like the main kind of ideal or plan that Chitara is trying to enact. Spoiler alert. I don't know how much you want me to go into this. But yeah.
Does it have to do with so I'm guessing like from the first 60 chapters I get the vibe that by that point multiple gods are interested in her. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they is it I don't know what they want her to do. I mean, obviously she's a very effective like prophet for the god of beauty, and they might just want her to be their prophet. But is it like the world's out of balance or something? Like they need
So
is she taking over everything?
So the gods, they kind of like what she's doing, even though she's mainly the apostle of the god of beauty, Phobonus, I believe. But they just like how it's just like them taking an interest. They're like, hey, I like how you did whatever you did, or like how you solved that issue. You know, I like that. So they obviously take an interest in her and they start to favor her more. But I think the main issue in the world that Chitara finds is the gods are interfering too much in humanity's plight, and it's just causing it to be worse and worse. They're expanding on issues that don't need divine intervention or like divine meddling or anything. So her main plan, her main goal, end game, is to kind of get rid of the gods that meddle in humanity's affairs. That's kind of her main goal. And she can't say that out loud. Otherwise, they're obviously going to take her down because they want to remain in power.
Okay, that's an interesting twist.
Yeah. So while she's dealing with her territory, dealing with these 6 dukes, dealing with the political goings on of like the kingdom that she's in, she's also dealing with like the way the universe in that world works. And she's just collecting the best guys in order to do that, which is they're very good looking, they're handsome, but they also kind of agree with her ideology because they've seen how the gods have kind of messed up in their world too. So it's very much a rebel against the divine kind of storyline. It's not 100% in the forefront of the story, but you can see the working of like she's laying out certain like plans and contingencies with the gods that are taking an interest in her and being like, okay, how do I loophole this? How do I twist this into my benefit? You know?
Yeah, so I can kind of see what you mean when you were saying earlier that you don't know how they're going to bring that necessarily to an end, or like, can they tell that story? But I do love that because that is proper webcomic going off the rails storytelling. Like every webcomic starts with like 2 roommates talking about video games or something and ends with them fighting God. Like that's what I used to love about this stuff when I was in high school and I was reading it, and that's what attracted me back to these webtoons, because I love how into it they get. And like she's pulling all those gotcha items from the other gods, and like this, we glanced over it, but there's a god of domination.
Yes, Adamona, I believe, the god of domination. Yeah,
Who gives her a whip and some transformable dominatrix gear that she can turn into a tracksuit.
Yeah.
And that was
It's a holy set.
It's a holy set, and that was a genuine comedy moment.
Okay, but you just left out the best part, which is when she whips people, they get a bonus. They get a buff.
Yeah, they get a buff to their abilities.
she whipped T-Rex to help him, bounce back after work.
No, that's great. I like how like that, even that kind of like little bit of kinky kind of like subversion of being like, yeah, you think this is, oh yeah, like this is a kinky thing, but it's also kind of like a little bit of a Benedict, like look at this gag that's going on. So I like that in the story they twist a little bit the things that you would normally just expect or being like, or kind of like brush off, and they kind of like bring it back to kind of being like, hey, this is a little bit important. Kind of remember that little drop of tidbit, Yeah, it's great. I love it. But that's what concerns me. It's just like I want to see Chitara kind of like enact her plan of kind of subverting the gods and kind of like compelling them or getting rid of them or eradicating the ones that meddle a bit too much. And I'm a little worried about how that's going to happen with all these. There's multiple layers of plots that are going on, and I'm a little worried how they're going to pull it off, as I said before.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's already been going. I mean, 3 seasons is like what a lot of these get.
I did want to say I found it interesting. So the first season is like 55 chapters or something. The second season is about the same. It might be 1 or 2 chapters less. And then the third season is just it's over 75 at this point. I'm just like, how are you deciding what's a season and what's not?
I don't know. I think that's more up to the scanlators to decide of like when the person's taking a break or not. Or like the artists are taking a break. I think for the scanlations, we're very far behind. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more that, but I'm not exactly sure how much, but we're very behind. There's been like 4 different scanlators that have picked this up and then let go of it. So I definitely know there's more to come. I just want to see it happen. I don't know how long
you probably
it's going to take.
don't want an official translation then, because if someone starts an official translation now,
oh God,
3 years
I
from
know.
they're going to start at the beginning.
See, that's the curse of this thing. It's just like, I want an official translation, so it's good quality. We understand what they're saying, but then it's like, I'm going to have to wait 179 weeks for it to catch up.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, but honestly, though, it does need like that's part of the reason I didn't read more was the translation started getting really, really rough.
Yeah.
And I was kind of losing confidence in whether or not I was even getting an accurate translation.
Yeah.
I would definitely say up to 140-ish. Or I think 139. Yeah, 139 is where like it takes a dip, and that's when I believe the main team that did season 2 kind of disbanded or started to disband. Unfortunately,
there's an interesting thing here in the version that I was reading. After chapter 48, the scanlation team changes.
Yeah,
and
that's where
it goes from chapter 48 released 1,551 days ago, and then the new team chapter dumped like a lot. But then there's some later. Yeah, it's like there's some middle ones in here. It's really weird.
Yeah,
There's later chapters that came out first.
So what you should have done is Reddit on Manga Deck. That's where the main chunk of it is, because the team that did season 2, they took down their version, their Scanlation version, off the Bata website, and then somebody re-uploaded them again.
Okay, that makes more sense, because what I read on Bata was rough.
Yeah.
After chapter 48, you said?
Yeah.
And I was even in the comments on that, and the team didn't dump it. Some user dumped it, and they were in the comments talking about how they did that.
I mean, it makes sense that they took it down because it's bad. Like there were parts where I was like, that is not an actual sentence.
No, that was the hilarious thing. Like, I mean, I don't want to be too mean, but like, what got me was that at the end of those chapters, they credited a whole team, like 5 people. And I was like, okay, one person and like maybe a typesetter, I could understand, but you're telling me there's a quality checker on this? Like there's a proofreader?
Do any of them speak English?
Yeah, that was kind of my question. Like this
series has had a rough time with translation, and it's a tragedy.
It's a shame, because I think the humor especially would benefit from a real translator who could make the jokes hit with the right timing in English.
I got to that point, and like I said at the beginning, I wasn't keyed in on this. It's not bad, but it wasn't something that just grabbed me. But I got to that point, and I just started skimming it, because I was like, most of these sentences don't even make any sense. I just need to get an idea of what's going on and move past that, which is why I got to the end where it said season 1 end, and I was like, okay, I'll leave this here for the episode, and maybe I'll come back to this at some other point.
I should. If you were having that much trouble, I wish you could have told me, because then I would have redirected you to Manga Deck, where there was a bit more stable translation for longer. So
I'll tell you what, though, I would love to get an official translation, because then I'll read it from the beginning.
Yay!
Yeah, I think I would start with season 2. Like if the official translation picked back up.
Definitely start with season 2, because like season 1 is kind of like you're establishing the characters, you're kind of setting up like the mechanics of what's going on. So if you're definitely going to more interested in the story, or like further in, I would definitely say season 2 is a great starting point.
So I have like 4 levels for series. So at the very bottom is obviously, I don't like this, I'm not going to read it, right? And then there's level 2, which is like, I don't like this, but I can see I can see where it can be good, but it's not for me, I'm not going to read it. And then there's level 3, which is like, this isn't grabbing me, but if I just get a chapter week to week, I'll keep up with it, because one single chapter is not difficult. And there's sort of a subcategory in there where it's like how many chapters build up before I'm like, that's too much to read. And this would probably fall into the 2 to 3 chapter category within there for me, where it's like, if I was reading this week to week, if it was only 1, 2, 3 chapters, I would read this. It's close enough. There's parts of it that I'm not into, but like overall, I like the idea of what it's going for, past the gotcha mechanic stuff, the game mechanics. And of course, then there's the top level, which is I will binge read this until I pass out. But so, I mean, in that regard, I think that's pretty good praise for something that I'm like, I'm not really into this. But like, I would, if I could get to a point where I could just read this week to week, I totally would. And that's sort of what I do with ones on that level is like, oh, I'll read 2 or 3 chapters a week and maybe I'll catch up. But then a lot of times just the amount of chapters I have to catch up makes me go, oh, maybe not. I don't know.
No, I totally agree with you there. Like, definitely back in the heyday of, like, when it was getting a proper scanlation, when it would come out, like, once every week or something. I agree. This one is definitely not something to binge. Even reading it, like, just rereading it for this podcast, I found it a bit difficult to start back from ground zero and then work my way up, so it's definitely something that needs to be taken in measure, read in measure. So yeah, I agree with you there.
I was thinking along the same lines. Is it just it but I think that might be because so much of it, at least early on, is the gag stuff. Like the gags don't, like the joke lands, you laugh, but you don't necessarily like. There's no cliffhanger to make you turn the next page to go to. The next.
Actually, there was a couple points where when I got to the end of the chapter, I was like, oh, I want to go to the next chapter. It wasn't every single time, but
when he went in for the kiss, I was like, oh, I got to know how this plays out. But,
Yeah,
I mean, but there's not a lot of that in the first season,
right?
yeah, definitely.
There's series that do the cliffhanger stuff at the end of every single chapter, and a lot of times I don't like that. I don't mind it here and there, and sometimes it's good to be like, oh, that's the thing. But like when you do it every single chapter, it just gets exhausting. So I don't know. I feel like this Chitra did a good job of keeping that balanced, where it was like it doesn't get exhausting going, I need to read the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Like it has good pacing with like the cliffhanger thing. I will admit, reading back like the first season and everything, I wasn't as into it as how I thought I would be. Rereading like the first season, I was just like, okay, I know it gets good, but like I just been like, I know we're just establishing the things and everything. So it definitely, like the first season is slow. I will say it is slow. It's slow, but once you get past, I think, into the second season and a little bit further, it starts like ramping up, and you're just being like, you're starting to see the payoff of like the little like pebbles or like seeds from season 1 start to reemerge again, and it's like, oh, okay, I remember that was an issue. You figured that out. You solved this, or like, oh, this plot point is coming back up again. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, even though I recommended it to you guys, and I'm like pouting it and being like, oh yeah, it's great. The reread was a bit of a struggle.
I would actually say I thought that the pace at which the first season went wasn't bad. It certainly wasn't, maybe as quick as you'd like, but I don't think the chapters were terribly long. So that most of the time, it didn't feel like a slog. Mm-hmm. For me, it was more along the lines of like, oh, she's doing more gotcha pulls. Okay, I don't care about that part.
I think you are not the target demographic.
Yeah,
there is some of that, because I'm not either. But if you do,
I mean, are we ever on this series?
I'll say, like, I mean, here's the thing: if it's, I think more guys would like romance if they gave it a chance.
Yeah,
and I think this one is obviously aimed at, if not women, then at the very least, people who like men romantically. But the gotcha mechanics and stuff, it is aimed at a very particular group of readers. Like the author definitely has the audience in mind, and it's people that get into these gotcha games where you collect
mobile
pretty
games.
characters and
yeah.
they spend too much time on him, and they know it's a guilty pleasure. And because she even talks about like, why I'm treating the statues like 2D, and I'm treating the guys like 3D, and I love them both. But she knows she's a nerd, and she has to hide it, and that's why like the will stat always goes up when she's trying to hide her expression and everything. So like, I will say though, legitimately, like playing a gacha style game did give me an insight into that. Like, yeah, you're way too into this, and you don't want to let everybody know how into it you are. Kind of vibe that some of the humor is derived from.
I feel like the target person for this is the kind of person who is literally playing a gacha game and finishes up their dailies, and then they switch over and read a chapter of this.
Yeah, I mean,
possibly, maybe also kind of like a bit of like the MMORPG, civilization kind of gamers there, time management, that kind of thing. Because when I first read this, I was not a gacha gamer. I was freshly introduced to Genshin Impact, so I was like, okay, I can kind of see, it's a little bit like this. And now, since I've reread it, and I see like the little gacha mechanics, I'm just like, relatable. This is so me.
Yeah.
When I'm pulling for a character. No, it's definitely aimed for gamers, mobile gamers that have that inkling or are familiar with microtransactions, premium, pay to win, that kind of thing.
I was thinking they didn't introduce like she can pay gold to get tickets or something like that. I was surprised.
That is
true, but it's a different kind of currency, which are the holy tiers, which you get from building faith. I'm just like, I'm showing my nerdiness right now.
No, I was about to say she's got to farm the faith by doing the repeatable dailies of
doing the commissions, doing the grind.
I was on Elder Scrolls Online doing my crafting dailies before we recorded today. So
so it's very gamer like relatable. Like if you're a gamer, you'll get the feeling of this, like capital G gamer.
In Villains Are Destined to Die, she like is getting money in that world from like her diamond mine or whatever the heck she has, but like then she has to pay that money into the system to view the affection scores of the guys. So
yeah,
it's a mechanic that exists.
Yeah, the game system kind of thing. I found that there's some manhwa that do this, the whole game system thing, but I know it's very popular for guys in the manhwa scene and in the Chinese comics as well. That's a very popular trope. So I think it really just depends on the culture of where it mainly is from.
That's even, I mean, it's really bled into the American scene with not so much with comics, but we are starting to get a web novel scene with like lit RPG, they call it. And there's websites like Royal Road, and there's other ones that have the same monetization stuff with like the tokens or coins or whatever, and you get so many chapters, and it's just it's a matter of time before that gets a little bigger.
We'll be dreading the day when that happens. Even though it's already happening, I'm not a fan.
No, it's interesting because I think it's something that only I say this I'm very, very old, but it's something that only like young people are really into right now. There's not a lot of people, I would say like over 30, that are even aware that this is a thing. The webtoons have gotten popular enough that I do think there's some awareness, but in that book world, the only reason I know about the like lit RPG scene and web novels and stuff is because I came through Otome Isekai and then found that there were actually a ton of people doing it stateside, and that was crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a way to make money, people will find it. That's 100% for sure.
As long, I wouldn't have a problem with it if I were paying the creator.
Right.
I feel like I'm not, though.
No,
some of these sites.
It's a very, like, a hot topic. It's something that's very debated upon. Personally, if there's like a printed version of a webcomic, I'm 100% buying it. If it's something I would like, especially like one of my favorites, then 100% I'm buying it, because I know it goes to the author and everything. But like with like Pappy Toon, Taptis, Linden, Monta, all those ones, it feels like, yeah, these people, like the authors or the artists, might get a portion of it, but it's not a significant portion as I would like it
5
to be.
cents on the dollar if they're lucky.
Yeah.
So, unless you guys have any other specific topics you want to cover, we could rubric.
Oh, yes. There is one thing I would like to touch upon a little bit, a little note in my notes here. This is one of the very handful, I can count on like one hand, webcomics, otome isekais, that mention periods.
Oh, yeah.
In depth. Like, it actually goes into it a bit. With hallelujah, praise the Lord, we need some representation up in here. It's not like we women do go to the bathroom, we do fart, we do burp, we do smell. Okay,
I don't
people
know about all that.
We do our best to camouflage the hell out of it, Brad. That's the thing. So, but we all do the same things as guys do. But it's very nice to see periods actually get a significant amount of talking time and a little bit of world building as well. It does affect a bit of the world in there as well, and it not being just a side thing of just being like, oh, she's not feeling too good, she's in bed because of so and so, or it's her time, it's the lunar cycle, or it's the flowing red tides or whatever,
No, I liked how she addressed this is me being like a weird like medieval literature nerd, but I liked how she addressed the fact that like there weren't the same products available in medieval times, and so how did women even deal with that? And it's crazy if you're researching into anything medieval how often that comes up, and like how much is not known about it, because the people writing books at the time didn't write about that. That was just knowledge that was like passed from like
woman to woman, mother to
generation
child,
to generation.
daughter. Yeah. It was a really nice like little thing to read, and I know they just do like a little mention of it a little bit, of like her yelling out the castle windows and being like, it's my period, I'm ready to die now. But in the later chapters, it comes back again with another character, another gal pal that she meets and makes, and it actually gets mentioned that like female mages, they don't work during their period because women have a stronger affinity for magic. And so when that time comes around, they get a little bit of an overabundance, and it kind of gets out of control. So when their period comes, they expel magic from their bodies, and then they fill it up with newer, cleaner mana or magical energy around them. So I was just like, oh, this is a nice little tiny drop of world building that's interesting with periods and everything. And yeah, I liked how it mentioned that, because it's
sounds to me like the perfect time to send them to war.
That is a smart idea.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, this is you're just hitting like the nerdy things I like. So I have a whole book on, I have several books on like what we know about Norse magic in like old Norse societies, and it's not a lot to spoiler, but one of the things was that there was a magic called Seidr magic, and it was mostly done by women, but it could be done by men. But there was it was, for lack of a better word, it was like gay if men did it. And so there's all these specifics about it that they don't know. And it was kind of tied to like fortune telling, and there is a little bit in there about like cycles and all that. And so there's like something to that in medieval belief. And it is one of those things that like it probably didn't get written down, and it was probably a very important part of society because like they would consult priestesses before going to battle to make sure like this is a good time to go to battle. And it influenced a lot of the politicking. Like Caesar wrote about it. When he encountered the Norse, he was weirded out by the fact that they wouldn't go to battle unless their women gave it the okay. And no, I do think it's cool. It should be mentioned. It should be a little demystified and a little like degrossed.
I have to say I've seen it in a couple other series, but mostly the way that it's brought up is just once, and it'll be like, oh, she was really malnourished, and oh, I'm bleeding now. Oh, my period has come back. That means I'm getting better, and then they never do anything else with it ever.
Yeah, it's just like touched upon for like either like they're getting healthier or like they're feeling a bit ill or weak or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Just no, it's not fine. Really, it's not fine.
I liked how the butler knew what was going on, though. He wasn't like a complete moron.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very, apparently, for some reason, that's rare to find in reality for some reason. Unless you're like a guy that grew up in a household of like just women, then apparently that's not really a thing guys think about, which is fine. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that it's like, it's strange how something that one half of the population deals with, and then the other half like just has not zero knowledge, but a very low knowledge of how it functioned, how it's maintained, like what's the maintenance on it. So I just find that strange.
I'm gonna say it is bad. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna make a stance.
I was trying not to guilt you guys.
There needs to be better education, just in general, about how women's bodies work. We're especially, these days in the United States, like it's a real problem that we have all these people who are in charge who have no idea how women's bodies work. We have all these people running around making all these assumptions and voting and stuff with no idea how women's bodies work. And it's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah, I didn't want to get a little bit political up in here. No. I didn't want to do that. But I will agree with you there. A lot of world leaders are just very ignorant of just other people's experiences, just in general.
I think what you said is right. I mean, it's half the population that has to deal with this stuff.
And the worst part is they think they know. Like they think they've got a good handle on it. It's not like they're like open to listening or hearing about it.
Yeah.
Although that's true of lots of things that people are ignorant about, is they think they know what they're talking about when they
don't really know. I'm just advocating for better knowledge to where not everybody is ignorant, especially when it affects a large portion of the population of the planet. You know?
Now, unfortunately, I don't think our listeners are the ones who have a problem with that. I have a feeling that our listeners are well versed in all those things.
It's just like a little thing that I'm just like a little astounded by and a little confused. So I'm just being like, it's a thing.
Well,
But
that's
as a message to our listeners, I will say, do your part. Get it out there. Get that information out there. Do not sit down and take it. Stand up. Let your voice be heard.
Damn right.
well, and it's like you said, it's a part of life, and it's mentioned in this comic, and most people are not. After a certain age, they don't ever spend time in a classroom again, so they're not going to learn it from a book. They're going to learn it from media. So this is where the representation matters. I know we said earlier in the show there was a problem with certain kinds of reputation, but this is something the author probably does have expertise on and can tell you a little bit about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was just a nice little side thing that I found, because it's just so rare, and I've read like literally hundreds, close to thousands, and I just don't see it, and it's just
and these are mostly by and for women, so it's like,
I think there's a lot of cases where it's not a thing that's going to be relevant to the story. Just like, going to the bathroom, that's not relevant. But there is something to be said about the fact that like it is much more invasive than any other bodily function. And so, when we just are having an adventure for months and months straight, it's like, well, wait a minute. There's definitely some days in there where things aren't going to go smoothly.
So it's relevant, but I can see why some people, it's not a fun part of the adventure. Anything else I wanted to talk on? Right. Since you both haven't really made it that far into the story, if it's cool with you guys, I would like to tell you a little bit more about the other characters that are going to pop up.
Yeah.
Or have like a little thing in the story. All right. So we've got our main three guys, our trifecta, that are introduced in season 1, which are Radlick, Tyrix, and Torian. So we know that we've spoken a bit more on Radlick and Tyrix. Okay, so we got Radlick, 5-star butler guy, wanted to be a butler. His main claim to fame in his past was he defeated the Demon King for his kingdom and saved the world, his world. Tyrix also assisted in that, and was the best Archmage of his time in that world. Let's see. So Torian, in his era, he was known as the Man of Iron Blood or something like that, I believe. Man of Iron Blood, yes. So, Blood and Iron, there we go. Half-elf. I'm looking at my notes right now. Half-elf.
Yeah, there was a thing in there about the Iron Blood, because they made a joke about that, but it was some cultural reference there was a translator's note about.
Yeah, and they were saying that the whole thing with his name is that he could make people who had iron blood bend to him, right?
Yeah, because he was definitely, in his time, he was like the chief strategic advisor for like any wartime, any diplomatic, administrative kind of things. So he's very much the brain of the operation.
They were making a differentiation between people who were like around within the Holy War, the War of Light and Dark. They translated it both ways.
I'd say, yeah, it was Holy War.
Versus people who were from ancient times. Like, there's two levels, and my understanding was Torian was from farther in the past.
He was further in the past than the butler and the mage.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
because they don't hear much about Torian, from what I remember.
And because like the Holy War was like sort of the end of the world. This like they defeat the Demon King, but then like everything is like, because this war has been going on, everything's destroyed and everything. So that's like the reset. Whereas like before that, and I guess even before the Demon King, there was like these ancient civilizations that were flourishing and everything. So there's sort of these different striations of time. And the one that we're currently in and following with Chitra is like thousands of years after humanity sort of got reset.
Mm-hmm. And that is also really interesting because that means that shows that there's probably separate histories. So there's 3 separate unknown histories that we don't know about in the world. And there's another major event, apparently, that gets mentioned called the War of the Gods. So that's another, I don't know if that's the war of like light and dark or anything, but all I know is like major shit went down with the gods, and the ones that we have now were some of the ones that came out on top. So that means there were more gods that were going around. And that's actually a pretty interesting little tidbit that you brought up, because I didn't really think about that. There being completely separate histories that we just have no idea what's going on about. That's really interesting. Oh, okay. I'm kind of getting invested again.
And the god of beauty is younger.
Yes, there's 2 different gods of beauty. So there's the god of beauty, Fabonis, which is the rabbit, and the goddess of beauty, which is the older sibling to the god of beauty. She's of the stance that the world is fine as it is. There's beauty in everything, from the most terrible thing to the most beautiful thing. So she's more of the stance of remaining neutral. She doesn't want to interfere with humanity or anything like that. And I think, and Chitra is kind of like relates to that. She finds that that's the worldview of how a god should be, kind of like observing but not interfering, compared to the other ones. Let's see who else. So yeah, Torian, main guy, like part of the main 3 that I find that are in the harem. Conniving, petty, snipey, little sassy boy who plays the innocent type. Friction, best dynamic is with Radlick. I love those 2 when they interact. Their relationship is just so fun, even though it's just them sniping at each other and like doing low level, like throwing shade at each other. So that's a fun like little dynamic. But also like Torian has a deeper sadness, a bit more complexity in like what he had to do in his previous life and what he has to do now in being with Chitra and everything. That goes into a little more depth. So like each of the harem characters have pretty fleshed out backstories. And yeah. So then who else? We got we get twins, little twins like Oran High School Host Club.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say there's always twins.
There's always twins. And these are the twins, green and gray. So they're high level elves. So I guess they would be kind of like, they would lean into the yandere trope because they're kind of very obsessed with Chitra a little bit. They always want to be around her and everything. And they're assassins. That's like their main thing. They're kind of like the cleanup guys.
There's always twins and they're always creepy. That's
they are a little off-putting. I will agree with you there. They're a little off-putting. Let's see who else. So this one is Prince Clive, who is the political marriage. Who is, spoiler alert, a regressor. So he has regressed 5 times He's a 5-time regressor. The 4th time he went back was when he started to know of Chitra and her thing, of like what of her political machinations and everything. But then he gets assassinated by Corian because Corian didn't like how he was a pawn in order to manipulate them. They're like little faction. So he poisoned him, even though he didn't want to do it. So yeah, so that's very interesting.
She was still the
Yeah, she was still the countess in that timeline that we know of. I don't know about the other 3 before that, but in the 4th one, she was a part of that timeline.
Dang. I can, yeah, I'm really starting to see how you're like, wow, how do they land this plane? But if they do.
Yes, then it'll be like, oh my God, they fucking did it.
Yeah, they'll have to do an official release of this.
Yes, they have to. It's astonishing how they haven't. So let's see who else is there. The Marchioness, Muriel Arsene, who is Chitara's cow pal that we meet a little bit further into the 2nd season. She's like an underling of one of the 6 Dukes faction. She mainly serves Andamona, who is the goddess of domination that we mentioned before. She's also a fellow degenerate with Chitara, so she also collects handsome men. That's her known thing.
I was gonna say you'd have to be if you're a disciple of the goddess of domination and you're hanging out in this crowd.
Yeah, with Chitara, no. She totally falls into it. And like later on, Chitara kind of makes like an idol group. So one of the plot points in season 2 is that Chitara is kind of being like, how do I get people to come over or like start like trading, getting like goods and everything. So she makes an idol group.
Out of the harem?
No, not out of the harem, of good-looking guys.
Damn, I would have wanted to see that. I would have wanted to see them be.
So she recruits some of the handsomest men who are like bards, actors, playwrights, just like good-looking guys, and they become idols. And she makes merchandise out of them, and she holds performances. So there's concerts and everything.
She's just recreating the economy of South Korea now.
Yes. Her ideology is that capitalism is king. So sadly, we're getting a little capitalist in here.
See, I was actually like, I didn't want to bring it up because we bring it up all the time on this show, but like, it is crazy how like everyone, I don't know what the Korean word for it is, but every one of these isekai protagonists wants to start a zaibatsu, and they think like the greatest thing in the world is to own a giant corporation. And I kind of wonder, it's like, is that
It's the culture of South
is that
Korea.
South Korean culture? Because
100%. Like I've heard that it's like the kingdom of Samsung, because Samsung reigns supreme in South Korea. They own a lot of the businesses. They're a huge conglomerate. They have their hands in every single pie in the South Korean economy. So South Korea is a very super capitalistic, elitist. Well, it's kind of elitist society. So I think that's they're only basing it off what they know.
Well, I guess that would be like what came after the war. Like North Korea went hyper-military, and South Korea had to lean into that export economy. And I mean, there's something deep in there that is being like slowly revealed to me through Otome Isekai, which is like probably the exact wrong way to study this, but
yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know if like you guys look into more like South Korean like movies. Obviously, there's been more South Korean movies that have started making their way over to the West, with like Parasite, and then we got Squid Game, and then got the 8 Show or whatever. So there's and each of those themes is very kind of like look at the elites, the haves and have-nots, and kind of thing, and that kind of like desperation of what capitalism had on such a scale of how it permeated so deeply into South Korea society that it just kind of like not ruined it, but it's decaying. I find like it's decaying.
Well, yeah,
the society it is.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to say, but like it's weird that I don't know. It's so I did not think my gateway into Korean culture was going to be Otome Isekai.
Mine neither. But like I'm not here for it because I'm like seeing that, and it's slightly concerning because if this is how it's going on in a place that has wholeheartedly accepted capitalism and embraced its like values and everything, what does it say about Western society? It's like a little look into the black mirror of being like, is this really how we're going to end up over here? I don't like it.
But it is interesting, like in her mind, how she views it as an alternative to the horrors of war, which I could kind of see coming from like a Korean historical perspective of like,
right.
If we build a strong enough economy, we won't have to do that again. Like, and in that case, it's like, yeah, capitalism's bad, but war is probably worse.
War is worse. Yeah, so, I can see the stance of like capitalism being preferred to just like an anarchy and war and poverty and all this kind of stuff.
And it's also weird to me that she's all in on the civil service exam in her previous life because the government's so tied into it. It's capitalism, but it's not, because the government is like, it's not a free market. Samsung owns so much.
They reign supreme. Yeah. They literally control South Korea.
And the same thing used to be true in Japan until South Korea ate their lunch with electronics.
Yeah, that's a shame, though. I mean, I remember the golden age of Japan being the go-to, like, electronic place.
It used to be Sony, and then it became Samsung.
Yeah, it used to be Sony, and then it became Samsung. And it's just like, it's a shame that Japan has kind of stagnated / regressed because of traditions. But anyways, back to our fun reverse harem of space.
There's a lot going on in this reverse harem, guys.
Yes, exactly.
You learn a lot about the world.
Exactly. Oh God. Let's see. So yeah, Muriel Arsene, gal pal, collector of handsome men, ally, basically. And then we got another gotcha character that gets pulled, who's kind of like below the main three, is General Philbatten, who knows Torian because they were in the same era together. So that's nice, like a little bit of kind of like a dynamic between these two that is one of respect and one of a lower minion looking up to Torian and like everything he's done for his kingdom, even though Torian was killed later on.
Was he the one that had the interaction with Torian where they were like, he had heard of Torian and he viewed Torian as a hero, and that surprised Torian because... Yes,
that way, yeah.
I liked that because that was a little depth for that character, because when you're the perfect actor and you deceive everyone, nobody really knows you.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy seemed to like see through it a bit, and Torian and him had a weird...
Well, yeah, because I think because Torian was did a lot of like the strategy for whatever war they were fighting in, or establishing the kingdom and everything like that. And then later on, Philbottom was the one that killed Torian. He beheaded him because the established kingdom now was looking at Torian a little side eye and being like, this guy, he's too good of a mind. He's too strategically powerful to keep around. So we're just going to dispose of him, kind of thing, which is sad in a way, because Torian like literally established this kingdom, and then the king, being like an insecure, trying to like maintain his power, of being like, you've done this for me, thanks, I'm getting rid of you because you're too big of a threat. Yeah, you know too much. So yeah, that was like a nice surprise when I first read that, of being like, oh, okay, so these two know each other and everything like that. And there's a little bit of history. So Philbottom, he is kind of like, the god of war really likes him. So he's a worshiper of the god of war. And he becomes Chitara's guard knight. So Radlick's mainly the butler. We're used to seeing him like be next to Chitara all the time. Unfortunately, later on, we don't see much of Radlick as much anymore. I know. It's a damn shame.
That's the one flaw in the harem story for me, is once I have a favorite ship, every other ship just becomes competition.
See, that's the thing though. All the guys get a little bit of loving. So they're each one kind of has a little arc with Chitara, and like how she meets them, how she builds them up, and like kind of like subsumes them into like the horde. It's true. And they all look up to her and they're like, whoa, she's great and everything. So I like how we each spent a little bit of time, like a good amount of chapters with each guy. So Philbottom, he gets the same treatment as well. Does he get smooches? Not really, because he's too noble. He's too knightly for that. So he feels like, for now. He feels it's kind of like the same thinking as what Radlick has, and being like, nah, she's too attainable. This is like my superior. This is my higher up, that kind of thing. But he's still going for it, and she's kind of like, this guy's handsome, so she's down for it.
Has she just gotten accustomed to it now? She's like, hey, if they're willing. Or is she still awkward about it?
She's still awkward about it, but she's still being like, look, if they're willing to shower me with this, with all this attention, I shall take it.
It would be rude.
It wouldn't be nice. It would be impolite. It would be like, it would just ruin their self-confidence, and it makes them insecure, that kind of thing. So she's just being like, this is nice. I'll still take it, even though I'm a little awkward and uncomfortable.
We all saw the options, guys. There were only two. It was polygamy or polyandry.
Exactly.
I didn't do this, okay? This is God, okay? This is how he wants it.
Exactly. She had no other choice. And then we get Yuri, who is the main lead of the idol group. Who, normal human. We get the normal human, soft boy, kind of shy, demure, gentle guy. He views Chitara as his savior because she saved him from an abusive household with his dad, who was kind of a douche. So there's that. He's very naive, gullible. It kind of makes me want to like protect him, because he's just like, I feel like he's going to get taken advantage of, because he's too nice, he's too sweet, he's too understanding. So I just be like, protect. This is my son. Yuri's my son, my little son right there. So that's 5, and then the last one that gets added. Yeah, the last one so far. I don't know if there's going to be anyone. I feel 6 is a good amount.
It's gonna get it's gonna get harder to write the story the more these guys
exactly if there's any more. 6, I feel 6 is a good number. And then the last one we have is Kyrus, who is the Demon King. The Demon King from Radlick and T-Rex's world. Yes. Yes. He is the Demon King of that time period. Not willingly. It's because of the Demon King gets possessed by the Demon God. And the Demon God wants to destroy Middle-earth. That's what the Scanlators use as the human world. Middle-earth.
Hey, that's Midgard.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes, that is, yeah. So Kyrus and Radlick have a past together. Radlick gets somehow thrown into the Devildom, and a younger Kyrus finds Radlick, and they kind of get closer and become friends and everything. And once Kyrus gets strong enough, the demon god starts to take over his body. Radlick is forced to kill him, or subdue him, steal him away. But then obviously he comes back, and that's how he becomes the guy that killed the Demon King. He's known for that. And then that's it. His stick is Chitara has put him as the Asian beauty, so she dresses him in a lot of traditional Korean or Japanese clothing.
Okay.
And he kind of has a debuff of being if he loses 20% of his charisma, the demon god starts to take over his body. So he's basically set as the trophy husband. He needs to sit and look pretty.
She's got to whip him to keep his stats up.
His charisma stats up. Well, she can't even do that, because then if he loses his attractiveness, then the demon god starts to take over. and then that becomes, oh no, we're going to start dooming the world now. And those are the main 6. Those 6 are the main guys of the harem so far. There's also a little bit of inner workings potentially with the Emperor. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. So
I think 7 would be the right number, right?
Really? I feel like 6 is much already.
Does it even matter at this point? Just keep going. Just get a portfolio.
No, I think because I don't know if you guys have heard of this anime called The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. Yeah, that one. And apparently there's a lot of girls in there, supposedly. I don't know.
I mean, that is a parody of harem manga.
Yes,
so.
but I've heard whisperings that they are, I don't know if they're actually going to go to the 100, but they're definitely going, they're in the double digits apparently right now with the girlfriend. So it's kind of like this dilemma of, I feel like too many would be kind of you're obviously going to push some characters to the side or to the background, or you're just not going to develop them anymore. They're not going to be relevant to the story. And we already have that with Radlick, unfortunately.
You could have like a Judas figure. You do a lovers to enemies, and then an enemies to lovers.
People do gobble that.
I was gonna say
it's cocaine. They love that,
Brad, but that is a staple of romantasy.
It is. It's crazy how much people love the enemies to lovers thing. Crazy. I mean, I get it. It's good. Good.
That it literally, Sailor Moon. How many times does Tuxedo Mask switch sides? He's always getting brainwashed, that guy.
So yeah, those are all the pretty like main characters of the story. Yeah.
All right.
I could tell Brad's ready to go read them all right now.
I don't know.
179 is a lot of chapters.
No, as I said before, this is more of like a read on your own time. Especially now, there's not a lot of people scanlating it. There's maybe like one person that's decided to pick it up. Quality is not that good anyway. So if one day by God's plan somehow there's an official release, wait for the official release.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the rubric then.
Yes.
To bring this all back together. So, as always, our listeners can join us in rubricing. Our rubric is up on our website. If you go to animepodcasterreincarnation.com, there's a link right up at the top, Heroine Addiction rubric. It's interactive, so it's a fun little thing you can do, and go in there and click on things and get your score. So before we begin any rubric, we obviously have the monumental decision of including or excluding the romance category.
This is where I'm kind of like a little debatey, because I'm thinking like, since romance isn't really, I find like it's not really the front and center kind of thing. It's kind of a little bit pushed to the side, because then later on there's a lot of more dealing with diplomacy, politics, territory management, that kind of thing. So the romance kind of takes the back seat to that kind of stuff. But it's a reverse harem. They get smooches.
Yeah, I kind of lead towards no romance, but this is me metagaming a little, because I can tell you, I wrote the rubric and I didn't write it with this kind of romance in mind.
Yeah, because I was thinking, well, I mean, it's all about beauty and a harem and all that. Like, it's got to be romance, right? We have to include
Well, it's kind of more about like
establishing
like
territory.
love for love's sake, like that kind of like just the. It's not like deep relationship stuff, at least not yet. So
yeah, I'm definitely leaning more towards the no romance, even though it's good.
I don't think it would be fair to do the romance unless I redesigned the rubric. I'm not saying the harem stuff isn't romance, though. I may kind of be saying that just a little. But yeah, no romance.
All right. Well, sometimes this is a dictatorship and sometimes it's not. I will go with majority opinion on this one. We will not include romance this time. So to kick things off, as always, we start with content and ideas, to which I'm gonna go a little high on this one from what I was sort of expecting to be. I'm going to go with a 4.
I am nodding. I am in agreement.
Yeah, I went with a 4 too. I mean, it's kind of, I'd say the generous part is trusting that the arcs are going somewhere. But I think that it's been set up in a way where they certainly could. And it seems like the author has thought about it. So,
no, I agree. Like, as much as I keep saying that I'm worried about how they're going to land this plane, I could see how it could be split up into individual planes, and each plane has their own runway. Because since each like subplot has its own layer of like the grand plot, which is let's take down the gods, and then everything else is underneath that. Yeah. It just how well it gets executed.
Yeah, it seems like right now, in order to do it right, they are only at the halfway point, if that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if in the next, I mean, this is a lot of leeway to give, but if in the next 50 to 100 chapters we don't start seeing the arc curve, if it just keeps going up, then we'd have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, we're good.
Yeah, and I think I would say, the primary issues that I have with this are more set dressing kind of things, the way that things are presented with the gotcha games and all that, the underlying narrative and the relationships and all that, I think is what I do like about this. So, all right. Pacing and structure. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I thought the pacing and structure was decent. It could have been better here and there, but I'd say overall it was it kept the energy up where it needed to.
I'll be leaning on Moon for this one, since she's read more of the 179 chapters. I'm between a 3 and a 4. I feel like it could be going too slow, but what's your vibe?
My vibe is that it's a 3. They're like, when I was doing the reread, in season 2, even though that's where it picks up, there are some parts where I just feel like it does slow down, or it's less like the momentum stops altogether because of maybe it's like a little like subplot F that we follow for a little bit instead of like A, B, C, or D. So it kind of like ramps up, and then it kind of for a little bit it goes down, and then it goes up again. So it's definitely I feel like it's a 3.
Yeah, that's what I'll go with then.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go with a 4. Screw it.
Oh.
I'm just going off of the first season that I read, and I thought the pacing in that was to the extent where I want to give it some credit. So
I got the feeling, and from what Moon is saying, I think this might be the case, is that the writer is trying to put out a chapter on some kind of regular schedule. And when you do that, you sometimes detour into easier plots than your main plot to buy yourself time to think. And so I think that's probably what's going on.
And, maybe reading more of it later on, I'll have a different opinion, but from what I read, I was pretty satisfied with the pacing. So, all right, we are moving on to characters. Oh, this is a tough one for me. 'Cause as much as I think that the story is going well and all that, I sort of don't really care about anybody.
I disagree. I actually I can see where you're coming from, and I'm trying to rate this maybe a little more generously than I otherwise would, because harem is always going to be a problem for me because I don't like the power dynamics. I just don't. I'm never gonna like somebody who is master being called master, and they can't betray her even if they wanted to because they took a magic pill. That's always going to hurt the characters for me, because that's not how people work. But with that being said, for a harem, I think the characters are better than they need to be. Like, I think they're given a lot of backstory. I think they have I mean, in a harem, it is so easy to just have one-dimensional trope, like this is the blonde, this is the redhead, this is the brunette. Like, there you go. It's very fetishy. But in this one, like the characters have histories with each other, not just her. There's more than one dimension. I was able to like the butler and not like the blonde guy. And I think I have reasons for not trusting the blonde guy, but he's also a little complex. So I'm going to go with a 4, I think, because I think above and beyond with the asterisk of for a harem.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with a 3 on this. I'm gonna flip these around. Mostly, I agree with your assessment, but there wasn't anything within these characters that made me go, I care about what they're doing as a whole, but any individual one, I'm just sort of like, you're just players within what I'm looking at,
Mm-hmm. No, I can see where you're going, what like your viewpoint on that. Yeah. For me, I've also chosen a 4. As I've mentioned before, they have good backstories. They're fleshed out a bit more. Their motivations, they slowly get revealed the more that they spend time with Chitara and the more they grow to trust her, and admire her vision or viewpoint or strength of will. I like the dynamics that they have with each other. So yeah, I could totally see it being a 4 for me.
All right. Well, moving on to art competency, which I imagine will have some interesting opinions here. I thought the art in this was fine, but it's doing a standard style, but also it's not really doing it to the best there is. I will say, I want to make a point. This, everything that I read is probably from 2018, 2019. So, fairly older in terms of a lot of the other stuff that we've covered on here before. So I don't want to like bring it down too much because of, the possibility that it can, get a lot better in the future. But, as far as I read, I mean, it's competent. So 3.
I would say I could see later seasons getting up to a 4. Because just in the stuff I read, it seemed like the skill was increasing as time went on. Like it seemed like, and I don't want to try to make up too much of a story based on absolutely no evidence, but it seemed like maybe a young artist getting better with practice.
If that's the case, they started out pretty good.
Yeah,
I gotta say.
I think I'm gonna go low on art competency, but spoiler, I'm gonna go high on flourish. So I'll go with a 3. It does the job, but the stuff I really like is probably the cartoony reaction faces and the kick moments.
Yeah. Art competency for me, I'm very picky when it comes to my art. Extremely picky. So as much as I love it, I'm going to be honest and give it a 3. It does what it needs to. I mean, I find that between season 1 and from where I'm at, there's very little improvement. And I think it's because there's such a large cast of characters. So they kind of need to maintain being like on model and maintain those like details. So I can understand why it's it's kind of simplified compared to even the usual average standard otome isekai kind of art style. But it doesn't like sometimes there's certain scenes where the art, especially with, I've noticed this a lot with Tyrek, the art kind of gets a little bit of a boost when he's kind of being intimate with Chitara, and I like that. So like I guess with more intimate scenes, the art kind of gets a little bit more detailed.
Maybe the artist has a favorite character.
A lot of the scanlation teams love Tyrek, so understandable.
He's the hottest. I'll give him that.
Is but yes, he is the hottest. Even though I support my boy Radlick, I love him. He's kind of like the trope that I like, the kind of like cold, stoic kind
he's
of
He's the
guy.
total package, but
yeah, he
T-Rex,
is the package.
Yeah.
But T-Rex, yeah. Oh, okay. But anyways, 3.
I think I saw the comments were like big himbo energy, and I was like, yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
T-Rex is 100% a himbo. Thick piece of cake.
All right. So visual effects, stylistic flourish. So Ben, you touched on this a little bit as far as like the chibis and the way that they're doing that. However, not like I enjoyed that kind of stuff, but it didn't really pop for me as far as like stylistic flourish is concerned. It was more, to me, it was more the reaction face comedy bits. And I didn't feel like it really did much in terms of the cohesiveness of it being art, so to speak. But I didn't think it was bad either. So I'm sticking middle of the road. I'm going with a 3 on this.
I'm bumping it up to a 4, mostly for comedic timing. I think it's deployed when it needs to be deployed. I think the reaction faces hit as reaction faces, and I don't know. I liked the playfulness of it. I liked the energy it conveyed, and it made me laugh. So I think I just want to be a little nice to it. So I'd go with a 4.
So when we're talking about art, that's like one of the things that I have like a very critical eye on. So I am also a 3. Like I will agree with Ben. There are a lot of good reaction shots. A lot of panels can be considered meme worthy. You can like take them out and put them in meme format. You can do that whole kind of thing. I'm not one of those people that find most memes funny, unfortunately. But I love the comedy in this. I love the comedy in this one. I do like the comedy in this. Seriously, not just me saying that. But they're like with the art competency, it does what it needs to do. It shows the effects that it needs to show when appropriate. But it doesn't give it that boost that I'm looking for with the florist.
Yeah, I think it's fair. 3 is still a positive score to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, now we have to move on to the most important category, personal preference, which
It's probably
I'm
where
just going to keep this going. It's a 3.
Yeah, I'd say it's a 3 for me, and it's really the harem thing. I think that's honestly the only problem I have with it, and I don't.
That's the part I don't mind.
The gacha game stuff I didn't mind. I don't like harems, and I don't think I ever will. But I don't. I think most people who like harem stuff understand the reasons I don't like it, and they just like, it is what it is.
Yeah, I would say, for anything harem, male centered or female centered, for me, it's all about not thinking about how this would work in real life, because like to give someone your love, to be in a loving relationship with someone, it almost precludes romantic love for other people on its own. So just the idea of a harem is just...
Yeah, or you wind up in like a polyamorous situation where it's like, I have seen books where they do, it's like they're both dating her and each other. And, you know, that could work too. It's the unequalness of it. It's you are all devoted to her and only her. But
I think as a fantasy, it's just like, yeah, okay, we're going to play around with this. As long as these kind of ideas aren't leaking into your real relationships in real life, it's like, okay,
no. And I will,
fantasy.
To this comic's credit, there's a sense of humor about it where I don't get the vibe that the artist is problematic. I think they get it. And then they're making fun of the genre in some ways. And like the smooching is not, it's very like PG. I mean,
there's no passionate kisses or anything like that. It's just like a kiss upon the lips, and that's it.
So Moon, I've got to ask, like, did you start at a 5 and you've come down on a reread, or where are you at with personal preference?
No, I didn't even start at a 5. I'm very realistic. No, I'm personal preference. It's a 4. Like, I'm positive towards it. I can see where it can improve though. Like, I have my issues with it. The reread has just made it those issues a bit more solid, or like, or spotted them or pointed out like ones that I'm just like, oh, okay. I didn't, like, looking back on it, I didn't notice this, but I noticed this. So yeah, it's, I mean, I still like it. I hope that one day it gets an official release, so everybody can kind of pretty clearly understand what's going on in it. But yeah, I'm a 4. I like it.
All right. Well, last and I don't think least, we have recommendation strength. Unfortunately, I'm sticking to my guns. This is a 3 for me.
3 road.
I would say 4 with the caveat that the genre is reverse harem.
I guess that's fair.
Hey, there's a lot of people looking for reverse harems. It's a very high demand recommendation. People are looking for that shit.
Yeah, I think you could do worse than this.
Yeah. So my recommendation strength, did you already mention yours, Ben?
4.
4, okay. I'm also going with a 4. So, like, if you like the standard Otome Isekai stuff, if you like games, if you like game systems or systems in general, then this is for you. If you like reverse harems, this is also for you. If you like world building and territory management, this is also for you. I've known, like, there's a lot of overlap into recommendations that, like, I want this, I want this, I want this. This has all the stuff that you want in it. Like, if you want reverse harem, you got it. If you want polyamory or polyandry, I've seen that a few times. This one's got it. So yeah, if you want a reverse harem, this one's got it. But I would definitely not recommend it to, like, someone who's a beginner, like, who's just starting out. This is more of like, you need to roll around in the pit first. You need to be a little dirty.
You need to have that tolerance and be looking for that next level.
Exactly. It's like gain your ultimate isekai level, like, grind them up a little bit, and then we'll let you in to this area.
All right. Well, so the two of you matched pretty closely here. There was only 2-3 categories that you were reversed on, but you both ended up at 65.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting. Unfortunately, I came in a little lower than that at 57.
That's fine.
Still
I think that's-
positive.
Yeah.
I feel bad because like you guys didn't get like the good experience of this, like you didn't get the good translation and you just read it on box, and I'm just like, no, you read it on box.
Yeah, that I would have read more if the translation were better. That is true.
Yeah.
So make sure if you do take the recommendation, you find
read it on Manga Deck.
Yeah.
And then if you're really desperate, Sato.
I definitely think I had a worse time with it because of that. However, I don't think my overall impressions would have changed a whole lot. There's just some things in this that just didn't click with me. But as with a lot of these things, I can certainly see who this will appeal to and the good things about it. So I definitely don't want anyone to come away from this thinking that I'm saying it's bad. It's definitely not bad. It's just not entirely for me. So, all right. Well, that will do it. We have reached the end for Chitra, although it's not over yet. So, yeah.
We have reached maybe the middle.
I would say beginning of the middle.
If you want a nice completion to it, then you better hope it's the middle.
Yeah, that's true.
As we've seen in a bonus episode, join our Patreon for that. Things are not ending well recently.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now it's time to talk about what we're going to do next time. So, as this was the Recommender special, we're going to go back to a little bit of normal choices for next time. What I am going to do is I'm going to leave on one of the recommendations. One of the recommendations we got from a new commenter, Annie, who recommended Surviving Romance. So we're going to leave that one up there. We're going to add in a new one. I think this might have been on one of the polls in the past, but I don't remember for sure. But putting this back up, Not So Wicked Stepmom.
Oh.
I think anybody who reads that one will be cheering for that one. And then last, this one's going to go on there, and we're going to leave it on there until people vote for it because we got to do it eventually. The Villainess Lives Again.
Classic.
So make sure you go on Patreon and check that out. All of the tiers get to vote on what we're going to cover. So make sure you check that out. The poll will go up the day that this episode drops, and then stay up for a week, and then you can come on our Discord and chat with us about what we're going to read. So yeah, thanks for listening. Thank you, Moon, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun. Very good time.
Before we go, I need to thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. Sugoi Mart's a retailer of Japanese snacks, drinks, toys, and merch. All of the stuff that they sell, you can't get outside Japan. So our listeners can check the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout and get 15% off their first order. And as I mentioned a few times, we want to hear from you. So make sure you go to our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com, and find all the links to our social media, as well as our Discord. You can find a link to Patreon up there. And you can also leave comments on the episode posts up there. As I mentioned, Patreon, our supporters, as I said, get to vote on what we cover on this show. But you also get bonus episodes. We've also got some extra special bonus episodes that we're going to be doing now for our noble and royal tiers. So if you want to check those out, you gotta sign up for that higher tier. But we do appreciate all our patrons, and so I would like to thank them now. First and foremost, at our noble tier, we have our marquee, Sir Cake Dwarf. So thank you so much to Sir Cake Dwarf. And you know, at our reincarnated tier, we've got an extra special person. So thank you, Moon, so much for being a patron.
You're welcome. I'm always glad to help.
And of course, last and certainly not least, we've got our commoner tier with Rena and Killhour. So thank you so much to all our patrons. Moon, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, please visit the Ultimate Isekai subreddit and Discord. We've just recently made it to 130,000 members on the subreddit, and the Discord is always busy. There's always a bunch of news on when series are starting, when they're ending. We got novel translations, we got writers, games, anything that you desire in Ultimate Isekai, or even not even Ultimate Isekai.
Now, the real question is, why aren't all 130,000 of those subscribers listening to this podcast? That's the real, I don't know.
Sometimes people are missing out on good things.
And as always, if you can't get enough of Ben talking about reading things, you can check out his other podcast, Words About Books. Although, not so many books this last month.
I've been assured that books were involved. But by the time this comes out, we will be doing another book, and it will be a romantasy, which kind of overlaps with this. And this one is very anime in nature. Fourth Wing, book talk, smash hit by Rebecca Yarros. So
okay, I have never heard of that.
People who listen to this might like it. It's I will warn, I guess it's smutty. So, okay. I mean, not super, but like there's a chapter that's pretty explicit. So,
if there's one thing I know about the Ultimate Isekai community, we love smut.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting book. I like it, but it's interesting.
Well, once again, thank you for listening. And we hope you had a good time. We all did. Now, you'll have to excuse me. I heard they're going to start prescribing manhwa. I'm going to see about getting my medical manhwa card.
So speaking of fan service.
Moon, is there anything special you want me to say as far as introductions or anything?
No, just like, I'm not special. Just being like, hey, maybe third time guest. I don't know. Just, you do you.
If you are on someone else's podcast, you are automatically special. That's how that works.
It's better to be a podcast guest than a podcaster. I think that's definitely a position of more prestige.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I get, well, that's true. I'm probably concerned about how everything, all the bits and bobs. Oh, okay. Just me. Just usual.
See, I think if you're a podcaster, it's like, oh, you were so alone, you had to create this thing to get people to listen to you. But if you're a podcast guest, you've been invited, people want to talk to you. Yeah.
Well, you want to hear my opinions about this one specific thing that I've recommended to you guys. So.
Yeah. Nobody asked us to make this, but we asked you to be here.
Oh, thank you. That's actually really very nice. Thank you. Both of you. Thank you.
There you go.